Hi there, welcome to Nappy Invest. In this Appendix 4C video, I'm going to take a look at MCS Security. This is a long-term holding I've had in my portfolio for a few years. In fact, I think it's been 4 years now. It's fair to say this company is a micro cap. They have a market cap less than $10 million. And even though they have a very low market cap, they are profitable and have positive cash flow in operations. So there is possible good value there. So it's not really a growth company, but even though it is not a growth company, they are growing revenues and they are looking at expanding their business base. So they are based in West Australia. So most of their services are in that state, if not all of them. They are thinking of expanding into other states. And they're even thinking of expanding what they do. So the thing they do is like physical security, or providing physical security for shopping malls, sports stadiums, that sort of thing, mines. There's low margins in that. So they are thinking of diversifying and getting into higher margin sort of revenue streams. So if they are successful in doing that, a market cap of $10 million for a profitable company with growing revenues and positive cash flow will or does represent significant value. And that's the reason why I have a holding in this company. It was a small holding. It's become significantly bigger because the share price has increased since I bought in, but it still represents really good value at these prices. So let's have a look at some of the facts behind this company. MCS Security was a backdoor listing about 5 years ago, if I remember correctly. So originally was a mining company, and that mining company was not successful, and so they stopped their operations and they looked for a backdoor listing. So MCS Security, I think it was two companies, if I remember, two security companies combined, and it's a way for companies to get onto the ASX without going through that whole IPO process. Ticket code is MSG, so obviously MCS was taken by some other company. And as I mentioned before, a market cap of $9.5 million, even though they have revenue and growing revenue of $30.7 million and are operational cash flow positive by $2.2 million for the trailing 12 months. That means the enterprise to operational cash flow ratio is 3.3. When I calculate or look at that number, anything below 6 represents good value, and they're at 3.3. So right now, even if they don't increase their operational cash flow and they maintain this sort of market cap, represents good value. They have actually in the past given dividends, and they might think about that in the future. But I would prefer them to think about expanding their business into other states or going into other areas where there's higher margins. So let's have a look at their most recent Appendix 4C that was released on the 30th of April, and we'll go straight to the operational cash flow part. Whenever I see an Appendix 4C being released by a company, I go straight to Section 1 of the Consolidated Statement of Cash Flows. Section 1 is cash flows from operating activities. In my opinion, this is the most important part of Appendix 4C because you can see how a company is operating and what sort of cash flows, negative or positive, the company has. So receipts from customers is the first thing I look at. In isolation, that means nothing. You need to know a trend, and we'll look at that trend in the next slide. But for MCS Security, the receipts from customers in the last quarter was 10.1 million, which was okay in my books. It was not higher than the previous quarter. So I do have expectations when I look at this number based off previous quarters. And we'll look at that trend though. That's the most important thing over the past few years. But really the most important thing about the cash flows from operating activities is right down the bottom. And that's where we can see if the company is operational cash flow positive or negative. And for the quarter, MCS Security was positive in cash flows by $1.1 million. That's fairly significant for a company with a market cap of only $9.5 million and growing cash. So they began the quarter with $3 million of cash and finished it with $4. So without any debt, that means the enterprise value is around $5 million. And that makes this company even more attractive. They have cash on hand as well. So even though the share price has been increasing, and I'll show you the chart soon, this company still represents really good value at these current share prices. It may not be the most sexy company, but sometimes the least sexy companies are the best companies to invest in. Based off this receipts history graph, it looks like MCS Security did backdoor list in 2015 2015, because the first receipts we do have from the company is back in January 2016, $1.3 million. I decided when I did the compound quarterly growth rates of receipts, I decided to leave that number out. It seems like it is a bit of an outlier, and maybe it wasn't a whole quarter, maybe it was like 1/4 of the quarter in regards to receipts, because it went from 1.3 million to 4.8 million the next quarter. So it looks like it should be left out. So all my calculations, when I look at compound quarterly growth rate, particularly the first one where I get a 3.8% growth rate in receipts, I've left out that first quarter. But what you want to see when you look at the receipts history is an upwards trend. And we do have an upwards trend in MCS Security. So if we go back to April 2016, we had $4.8 million in receipts that quarter, and they've grown that or doubled that in 5 years. So that's a good growth rate for a company that is quite cheap. And the most important thing here is, have they accelerated that growth rate in the past few years? So what I did is looked at 12 quarters, 8 quarters, and 4 quarters of growth. And I just wanted to see if they are increasing that growth. And they are. So over the past 3 years, which is 12 quarters, they've grown receipts at 4.9%. Over the past 2 years, they've grown at 5.9%. And over the past year, they've grown at 8.1%. I did mention in the previous slide that the most recent quarter cash receipts was almost identical to the previous one at $10.1 million. But we have seen in the past where receipts can be lumpy. Sometimes the quarter will be higher than previous quarters, and then it goes back into an uptrend. And we did see receipts grow from October 20 to January 21. So this could be just a pause in the growth rate in receipts. And maybe even the April quarter or the March quarter is or tends to be the lower quarter or the least successful quarter for the company. So everything is going right for this company right now. They're growing receipts. They are valued quite low. They're profitable and have operational cash flow. And those are the reasons why I bought into the company. There was a bit of a high risk at that point in time. But right now, there's no way I'm selling out of this company until or unless they show me some bad news. Maybe they're doing things wrong. They're losing cash flow. Receipts are going backwards. Those sort of things would make me sell out of this company. But at this point in time, the share price have been going up. Everything is just going right for MCS Security. Onto the charts for MCS Security, and we'll look at 2 charts here. First one is the 3-year weekly chart, and then we'll look at the daily chart. When you look at the weekly chart, not much was happening with MCS Security from 2018 to the middle of 2020. In fact, the shares were going sideways. And I had been a shareholder for quite a while, and I wasn't really seeing the value of my shares go up during this period. So I bought around about 1.5 to 2 cents, sort of that range. And a couple of times we did see the shares go up. We saw that in July of 2019. The shares tried to move above 2.93 cents, but then it pulled back. And we saw the same thing happen in the middle of 2020. The shares went to about 2.9 cents and then pulled back. So that 2.9 cents was a resistance level. If I was a trader or a sentiment momentum investor before I bought into MCS, what I would have done is wait for a breakout of that resistance level. And we saw that breakout in October 2020 right then. So that was the time to buy at around 2.93 cents, which actually was double my buy-in price a few years ago. And from that breakout, we just saw the share price rise and rise and rise. And hopefully this shows you that technical analysis or breakouts of the share price can be very powerful, because when that share price broke out from that resistance level, it moved from 3 cents all the way up to 6 cents in a few months. So it's a double in the share price in a short period of time. One of the main negatives about MCS Security is their shares are illiquidly traded. And you can see that in the candlestick chart on the top there. It's quite noisy. You can see there's no smooth movement in the share price up and down. The overall trend is definitely there, but it's not smooth. It's quite noisy. And that's just showing you that the shares in the company are illiquidly traded. You can also see that in the volume down the bottom there. There actually are some days where the company shares are not traded at all. So some people or some investors will not buy into illiquidly traded shares. It does not scare me. And the main reason it does not scare me, research has shown that companies with a low shares on issue that are liquidly traded tend to have the best returns on the market. So that includes all companies, including growth companies. So just keep that in the back of your mind, that research shows that MCS Security falls into the basket of companies that tend to have the best overall returns on the market. But anyway, back to the chart. If you go back to last year, before October 2020, shares were going sideways. We did see the share price reach about 2.9 cents again, 3 times in June, July, and August. So that was resistance. And the whole point about resistance is you wait for the share price to break through resistance on high volume and hopefully coinciding together with some positive financial news. And we actually had that with MCS Security towards late October when they released their Appendix 4C to the market. So it was a good Appendix 4C. The market liked it. We saw massive volume compared to what we usually see with this company. So 12 million shares traded, and the share price broke through 2.9 cents and just went on a nice little bull run from then. In fact, it doubled in share price for over a 4-month period. So it went from 3 cents to a high of above 6 cents in February and March. There was a small correction during March and April. Shares went from 6 cents to about 4.4 cents. The good thing about that correction, you see share price going down, was the volumes during the same period was really low. And that's showing you there were not a lot of sellers coming in trying to get rid of their shares in this company. There were no buyers either, but the main thing is there was no sellers. And when MCS Security released their most recent Appendix 4C, again, the market favoured it. Not quite as favourable as October because we didn't see the massive spike in volume, but still the share price went up. The only thing that was concerning was the shares moved in a range between 5 and 6 cents, and there was a bit of resistance in that range or zone of share price because if we go back to January, February, March, that's when the share price was moving in that range. And there would have been some holders who bought in between 5 and 6 cents, saw the share price move below 5 cents and thought, this is a dog of a stock. I'm going to sell out as soon as the share price gets back to when I bought in. They saw the share price get back to when they bought in and decided to sell. And that sort of thinking is really flawed. I really shouldn't have to explain why, because the shares have moved higher. Positive report. Everything is looking very positive for this company, and we'll see more than likely the share price increase from here on in over the next few years, unless there's negative news that comes into the market. That is all I've got for this video on MCS Security, looking at their Appendix 4C. If you have any questions about this company or anything else, make sure you leave a comment or a question in the comment section of this video, and I'll answer anything you have to say as soon as possible. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, so if you do need financial advice, make sure you seek out someone who is qualified and can speak to your own financial needs. That's all for this video. Have a good day. Talk to you later. Bye.